Everyone has secrets, but the people you're about to hear shared theirs with millions of strangers on Reddit. These are some of the darkest confessions ever posted. Confession 1. I went to the doctor today and paid with cash. I'm pregnant. Throwaway account. I'm 17 and pregnant. I don't know who the dad is. I went to a party a few weeks ago, 8 to be exact. My best friend begged me to go with her, saying that I was being too stuck up. I've never been to a party before, mainly focusing on my clubs and work, and her words struck a chord with me, so I went. We were dancing together, drinking alcohol. I'm used to light drinking since my parents introduced me and my siblings to it around 16 to 17, depending on how outgoing their kid is. It's a safety precaution of, hey, this is what it's gonna feel like, don't go bumbling around the streets like this. Not to say that they let us drink every day. The most we get is a light buzz under their counsel, and we only get that on special occasions. That might have been unnecessary info, but I'm a mess right now, and the only reason I have any grammar is because I'm typing this on my phone. Anyway, I started getting drunker, and my friend peeled away from me at one point, and this guy slid up to me. I can't remember what we talked about, but he was kinda cute, and I know that I danced with him at one point. The rest of it's a fucking blur. I can't remember anything else. I woke up naked with him in the guest room, and that's about it. My friend told me later that I told her that I found a hot guy and to not look for me or some shit like that. When I spoke to him, he said, yeah, we had sex. Asked if we used a condom, and he said he thinks we did. He ends up dropping the bomb that he has a girlfriend. And to not mention this to her? I'm hangover and so confused, and I just had sex with someone for the 3rd time in my life and can't remember shit, so I just left after I got my clothes back on. I missed my period, felt different. It's hard to explain, but I felt so weird. No morning sickness or anything that the articles say, but just an awkward feeling. I thought it was just stress from work. Or maybe getting sick. My periods are normally very punctual. They start early in the month and end 3 days in. I did not get my period for 8 fucking weeks and thought it was stress. I'm such a fucking idiot. Like, how did I not see any signs or some shit? Then I thought about it all. I decided that I didn't want to use a store-bought test because the ones in the stores around where I live aren't very good. I've heard of a lot of people buying them and the tests saying they're pregnant when they're actually not. So today I went to the doctor and didn't use any insurance so that my parents didn't get any notifications or some shit. I don't know how that works, but I didn't want to take any chances, and I explained to him everything, and he told me that they'd test me. Surprise, surprise. I've got a baby in my uterus. What the fuck am I supposed to do? I'm sitting in my fucking car and I was scrolling on Reddit because I'm chronically online and saw the confession board and I just needed to tell someone. Anyone. So I went this account and here I am. I don't know if I make sense anymore. Because nothing does. I'm pregnant and I'm 17 and I don't even know the guy's name, but I'm pregnant with his fucking kid. And he has a girlfriend apparently, and I'm pissed off that my friend let me go somewhere with a guy, and I'm so fucking angry that I can't remember anything. If anyone has advice or anything, I'm gonna be in my car for a little while longer. I don't think I'm going to abort, mainly because I know that if my parents get pissed off, they'll still support their grandchild no matter what. And it isn't the baby's fault that their mommy is such a dumb ass when she gets blackout drunk apparently. Sorry for this being so long. I just don't know anything anymore. Confession 2. I've been keeping this inside for too long and I just need to confess. I'm using a throwaway account because I can't tell this to anyone in my real life. I'm too ashamed and shy to speak about it out loud, but keeping it inside is becoming too heavy. To be honest, I don't care about judgment, criticism, hate, or humiliation from anyone here. Say whatever you want, it doesn't matter to me. I just need to let this out to breathe. When I was a child, I was wordy. Later, when I was around 12 to 13 years old and going through puberty, I was just a stupid kid who didn't know that it was bad. I only realized what I had done when I turned 14. Because of that lack of understanding back then, I accidentally repeated that cycle and worried my younger sister. Every time I think about it, I feel this overwhelming wave of anxiety and guilt. I constantly overthink it, wondering, how did I even get to this point? It eats me alive from the inside. Writing this here is my only way to finally let it out into the world. I just want to put these words out there, breathe a sigh of relief, and hopefully, finally let it go. Thank you to anyone who reads this. It feels good to just type it out. Confession 3. I used to lie about sexual assault and other serious trauma for attention of 20. Not openly, but to friends. I was around 12 to 14 at the time, and when my friends sometimes got into a serious convo and shared their private life/issues, I felt like I had nothing of value to share back, and I could therefore lie about the most disgusting things that had happened to me. Simply, just for attention. Then I unexpectedly found myself in a situation at 14 when something actually had happened to me. and I didn't dare to tell anyone because I felt like no one was going to believe me. None of my old friends ever got to know that it was all lies. Neither did I ever tell anyone what happened. Confession 4. I am responsible for the deaths of several people. Around 4 years ago, I was a vendor on the darknet. It was a relatively short-lived thing. I was just doing it because I was too lazy to get a job and at the time didn't want to settle for the 9-to-5 thing. I wanted to start my own business and use the drug money as a startup. I had been using myself for years. Along with that, I met lots of people into the dealing scene and eventually started dealing myself. I have a lot of anxiety though, so I hated meeting up with people in parking lots, and I definitely didn't want anyone to know where I lived. That's when I read about the Silk Road and Ross Ulbricht being caught. Got obsessed with the idea of it. Got obsessed with learning OPSEC, all with the goal of eventually using my connections to start up my store. Well, after a couple of months, I did. I started my store with 3 drugs, ketamine, meth, and some outdoor weed my buddy was getting for super cheap. All was going good for a few months, had a couple thousand get stolen in an exit scam, but I had about $25,000 saved at that point, so it didn't ruin my life like a few vendors I knew of. Eventually, I met a local connect that came into town only once a week, but had fucking anything I wanted. Mescaline, LSD, mushrooms, PCP, and fentanyl. At the time, people weren't really cutting heroin with fentanyl. I mean, I'm sure people did plenty, but it was not nearly as commonplace now. People just did fentanyl, and still do. I put all my addresses into an Excel spreadsheet along with their name, zip code, order, along with the amount. At the time, I was selling some super white powdered mescaline. The fentanyl was also a white powder. Very similar consistency. Long story short, my Excel fucked up, or I fucked up, and about 7 people's mescaline orders were filled in as fentanyl orders. They all went out. I didn't notice and kept doing my thing for a few days. After about 5 days, someone contacted me and told me their friend died from my mescaline. I immediately called bullshit and went to check my order log and scale up how much I had of my mescaline left. Well, I had about 11 grams more than I should have. I still don't know how the fuck it could have happened. I wasn't a user, but I was definitely high off dabs. I went to check my order log on the market to see if anyone had finalized on their purchase, and a couple of them were, but none from a specific day, including the person that messaged me. No one that had purchased mescaline that day had finalized their orders. The market I was on also had a feature to see the user's last activity, and none of them had logged in at least 3 days, most 2 days. I immediately deactivated my vendor account. I didn't even need confirmation. I knew what happened. I knew I just killed several people. I sold the rest of my drugs, converted my Bitcoin to cash, and moved the fuck away. Didn't speak to anyone for weeks. Found a job in a restaurant, living in a city I always wanted to. I haven't touched drugs since that day. I haven't had anything to do with that life since then. I still think about them. Every night. I saved their names and Googled them a few days later. I was able to find info on 4 customers that definitely died. 1 customer shared it with a friend. They both died. I don't know why I'm even posting this, mainly because I have no one to tell. And even if I did, I don't think I could. I spend my days sober. Clocking into work, clocking out of work, coming home, playing video games. I'm a complete recluse. People I used to know have distanced themselves immensely, and I know it's because I'm a shell of my former self. I can't help it. Could I even tell a therapist about this? I don't feel like I deserve to be alive. Am I really living anyway? I don't even know anymore. Maybe this will help me feel better. Confession 5. I almost killed my stepmom. This is pretty hard for me to post. I've never talked to anyone about this. Even my wife doesn't know the full extent of it. But here we go. In 2000, my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer. She was a 2-pack-a-day smoker for about 25 years. She fought hard and was able to extend the short life expectancy the doctors gave her. I'm not sure how long they gave her. I was 10. They spared me the details. Anyways, she survived for over a year and ended up passing away in February of 2001. I remember as if it was yesterday. Her best friend came over the very next day as we were in mourning to pay respects and say goodbye to her friend, which is normal and fine. The thing I felt weird about was that same night, the day after my mother's passing. She spent the night with me and my dad. She slept on the couch. At the time, I didn't think too much of it. Had other things on my mind, obviously. Plus, we had numerous family and friends coming by and sleeping over before her passing as well, so I grew semi-used to it. Time goes by, and it seems every other night she's sleeping over. Within the first month of my mother's death, she's finally sleeping in my dad's room with him. During this time, she was respectful and nice. She brought her 2 youngest kids a lot as well, which was nice at the time. Fast forward 3 months, we ended up moving and she and her 2 kids end up coming with us. By this time, they are already talking about marriage, which I strongly protested along with every single family member of mine as well. They decide to ignore me and everyone else and get married. The same year my mother passed away. At first things were the same as they were, but as time went on, she began to show favoritism to her own kids, which I guess is understandable. But to the extent that it grew was kind of disturbing. She'd let her kids get away with murder. They would taunt me, make fun of my dead mom, threw ashtrays at me yelling, "Your mom wants a hug." She was cremated, so pretty much anything with ash was fair game to use to fuck with me. A year goes by in the new house, and me being a skater kid, I frequented the skate park a lot. On my way back home one day, I ate shit. Bad. Hit a crack in the road on a very steep and large hill. I was probably going in excess of 20 miles per hour. The board stopped, my body flew, then rolled a few more feet. I was barely able to move but managed to hobble back, cradling my arm like a baby and screaming at the tops of my lungs the entire way home. As I'm walking up, she intercepts me in the garage and accuses me of overreacting and tell me to, quote, "Stop being a little pussy." I knew there was something wrong with my arm, considering I was physically unable to move it at all. But she wouldn't listen to me, and my dad wasn't home from work yet either. For hours, I waited for him to show up, and when he does, it turned out my SM had already talked to him, so he wouldn't listen either. The next day was a school day. I remember this because I was awoken by my SM's little cretin of a son throwing my full backpack onto my chest to wake me up. I woke up screaming. SM comes running to the room and promptly tells me to shut the fuck up, you're not hurt. Stop faking because you're still going to school. Well, I couldn't stop. I was in agony. I was still holding my arm like a baby, so she punched my bicep, in the fashion friends would I guess you could say, and said, "I'm taking your dumb ass to the hospital just to make you feel stupid when they tell you nothing is wrong." Well, upon seeing the doctor, he almost immediately says, "Yup, your shoulder is broken. I can tell by the way you're instinctively supporting your arm." SM was silent. Doctor set up x-rays. Turns out my collarbone was completely shattered. Proved her ass wrong, but it only fueled her rage more, it seemed. She became spiteful. Took away all my skateboards, bikes, anything that I could ride. My arm was in a sling anyways, so it wasn't like I could use them anyways. But she had no intent on giving them back to me. In fact, she gave them to her own son. Even my own dad said it was for the best because I've shown to be irresponsible with them and can't use them correctly. Only thing I was able to do was play video games. Barely. Considering my arm was completely bundled up. Another few months go by and my arm is healing up good, and we all go on an easy hike in the desert. We find and pick some wild cactus apples. Excited and eager, I start eating one with the help of my dad. Turns out there were little mites in the fruit, and I contracted scabies. Half of my face swells up in the most morbid of ways. Couldn't talk right, couldn't open one of my eyes. I was fucked up. My older sister, that I just realized I haven't mentioned at all yet in this post, came to visit me with my 2 nephews. Drove 3 hours just to hang out with me and see how I'm doing. As soon as she sees my gruesome swollen face and she screams in terror, grabs her kids and leaves. Needless to say, it made me feel like more shit, but I understand. She calls my dad, urging him to take me to the hospital, but SM again refuses, saying it's not that bad and that all I need is a nice warm washcloth. Well, 2 weeks go by, swelling is reduced but not completely gone. Sister threatens to call the cops if they don't do something. So stepmom again tries saying she's gonna feel dumb when it turns out to be nothing. Well, this time doctors say at this point they can tell what it is. Scabies was the most likely considering the symptoms I'm told. That I should have been there 2 weeks prior when I couldn't open my eye. SM takes this as a win. More time goes by. More shit happens with SM CPS is called and I am interviewed. Nothing happens with that. Holidays were ruined by her kids, yet I was to blame. I ended up basically being the Cinderella of my house at this point. My bed was even moved into the laundry room. One year the pipe burst and my room flooded up to 8 inches. Nothing was done about it. Eventually, when I was about 14 years old, I worked up the courage to tell my dad what I thought about her and how she treats me. Well, I guess by this time he was so tainted by her that he began talking like her. He said to get over it. She's not mean. You're just trying to antagonize for the sake of drama. I told him if that's how he feels, then I'm moving out to live with my sister. Sister agrees, and I move out. Life was good for a bit, till I started missing my dad. I felt like I failed him. So after 2 years living with my sister, I decided to move back in with my dad. Almost on arrival, SM starts her shit all over again. Comments like, "Great, more unneeded doctor visits," or no skateboarding, don't want your sister calling the CPS again. It was actually my aunt that called, I found out years later. On the day before my 17th birthday, I will never forget the words that came out of her mouth. I was getting breakfast and made a comment on how the house was starting to reek with cigarette smoke. I'll admit at this point I was a bit snarky, but I said it to myself. SM wasn't in the room, but she heard me all right. She storms in and tells me, if you don't like it, to go back to your sister's house. Or did she kick your whiny ass out and that's why you're back? I snapped. I told her to fuck off and to kill herself. She walked up to me and looked down at me. She's a good foot taller than I am. I'm pretty damn short. And says, you do it. I fucking dare you. I stare at her in disbelief and she starts laughing. Fucking pussy. You're weak. Just like your mom. At this point, I have a death grip on my fork with every intention of sticking it in her throat. But I don't. I keep quiet and continue eating my breakfast. That was the first of many comments about my mom. Seems she took a page from her own kids that used to say very similar insults. Only thing is, she was supposedly my mom's best friend. I call her out on this and she tells me to fuck off and die. Because of the years of mental abuse, I become depressed. Suicide was on my mind a lot, and she knew it. She egged me on a lot, telling me to say hi to my mom in hell when I get there. She would get drunk and say the most horrible things, like, I hope Satan makes your mom put cigarette butts out on your face for eternity. After a while of this, I made a noose, measured the rope, and tied it to a wooden beam on my ceiling. One night, I hung myself. The wooden beam broke, and obviously I survived. I took this as a sign that maybe I'm not the one that needs to die. Eventually, I end up finding my dad's gun after a few days of snooping in his room when no one was home. I hid it in my room and kept telling myself on repeat, next time she's blind drunk. Well, a friend came over one night and we began talking a bit. I told him I was fed up and that I had a plan. I didn't go into details, but he's a smart person. He was able to figure out what I was planning pretty easily. He began crying to me. He pleaded for me not to go through with anything and to move back into my sister's house. This went on for quite a bit, but eventually he talked me out of it. I showed him the gun and he snatched it so fast and took off out of my house and down the road to the lake. He tossed that motherfucker as hard as he could into the water. Somehow seeing that made me feel better. Anyways, I realize this is pretty anticlimactic, but after that I just ended up moving back in with my sister. No one in the family has any contact with my dad or his wife anymore, and at this point I think that's his choice. It's been over 10 years since then. I've moved across the country to numerous different states. I've made a career and name for myself. I got married to my dream girl, and we have the best little girl together. Things could not be better. Last I heard, SM's two youngest are in rehab centers, and SM had a massive heart attack that almost killed her. Surprised me that she even has a heart, Karma, I'm guessing. Anyways, that's my life, laid out in all its poorly written glory. I'm sure some people won't buy this, but I honestly didn't put this here for anyone else other than myself. So it's no skin off my back. Take what you want from this whole thing as you will. I'm just glad to get this off my chest one way or another, and grateful that I had an amazing friend that was able to help me out my darkest of places.